Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in our 29th series of Marfond webinars. Today we're going to be talking about building resilience for coral reefs in the Caribbean. While we get started, wait for other participants to join, we will present a short video, an introduction for the session, for the webinar.
El arrecife mesoamericano es un sistema de ecosistemas marinos interconectados que se extiende a través de las aguas territoriales de Belice, Guatemala, Honduras y México y provee de muchos beneficios a la zona del Atlántico Sur.
El primero, el más importante, es la protección costera. Gracias al arrecife, que actúa como una barrera, pues podemos tener espacios costeros donde pueda vivir la gente.
Cada vez son más frecuentes y más intensos los huracanes y los arrecifes están sujetos a muchas presiones que no le permiten una regeneración natural y por eso tenemos que participar con acciones de apoyo y de rescate después de tormentas.
En la atención de emergencia para arrecifes, enseñamos a la gente que son los voluntarios que nos van a ayudar para recuperar los corales que puedan ser dañados después de un huracán o una tormenta y las piezas que se puedan romper, recuperarlas y volverlas a poner o a sembrar en una posición de tal forma que el coral se pueda recuperar y volver a crecer.
La capacidad de respuesta post-tormenta está conformada por grupos de trabajo, principalmente un comité coordinador de respuesta, un comité de operaciones, una red de aliados y las brigadas de respuesta.
La brigada está conformada por gente que va a hacer snorkeling y la gente que va a hacer buceo. Los buzos que van a estar ahí abajo recuperando las piezas y haciendo el trabajo. Todo se manifiesta en conjunto, tanto el capitán de la lancha, que también es parte de la brigada, como los dive masters que nos van a estar apoyando en la logística y la gente que va a estar en acción en el agua.
Las alianzas estratégicas son muy importantes. Se necesita la colaboración y el empoderamiento por parte de los gobiernos locales, de los gobiernos nacionales, de las ONGs.
Estas alianzas, estas sinergias son necesarias, no solo a nivel local, sino como lo estamos haciendo actualmente a nivel regional. Esto ha hecho que se fortalezcan los comités técnicos de las áreas protegidas.
En Marfond estamos apoyando a varios sitios de la región en la conformación de capacidades de respuesta post-tormenta. Para ello trabajamos en estrecha colaboración con los gobiernos de la región del SAN y con socios clave como The Nature Conservancy, así como con el apoyo de varias fuentes donantes.
Brigades assist a lot because now we can apply those techniques in our restoration work that we commonly do. And also whenever there are heavy storms, we know that we can go out and we have a team that we can now reach out to.
Como brigadistas vamos a poder ver los frutos de nuestro trabajo muchísimo más rápido. Cuando pasa un ciclón, una tormenta, un huracán y hay daños en el arrecife, el hecho de poder nosotros directamente ir a hacer esas reparaciones bajo el agua y poder salvar corales es sumamente valioso.
If the reef dies, then the communities die along with it.
Good morning to everyone once again. Thank you for joining us in the series of webinars of Marfond. This is our 29th edition. We will begin now with our topic of building resilience for coral reefs in the Caribbean. First of all, we want to give some logistical announcements. Claudia, go ahead. Thank you, Andre. Good morning to all. To be able to connect to the online Zoom interpretation, please follow the instructions on screen. Select the language of your preference. And if you wish to mute original audio, please do so. It's optional. Some of the ground rules for the webinar are the following. We wish to foster a space of respect and learning in Marfund. That is why microphones and cameras will be deactivated during the webinar. Please write your full name, country, and organization in the chat box. If you have any questions, please write them on the chat box. If you are joining us from Facebook Live, send your comments or questions on the comments section in Facebook. Once all the presentations are over, each one will have a space to answer your questions. It's important to highlight that these are opinions, personal opinions of all the presenters, and not necessarily reflect the opinion of Marfund. Welcome once again, and we will begin now. You can also see on screen how you can follow us. Join us in our social networks. We have presence on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and our website. We are also sharing a link of the recording of this webinar that you can download for future reference. Thank you very much, Claudia. And now I will introduce our panelists. First, we have Dr. Claudia Padilla, from Project Director at Macabes del Mar. We have Lorena del Rosario, Claudia Rees, from Reef Rescue Initiative Coordinator, Pablo Davis Posada, Climate Change Coordinator, Action Fund, Mauricio Valenzuela, for a brigade instructor, and Maria del Carmen Garcia Rivas of Puerto Morelos Reef National Park. First, we will give the floor to Claudia Padilla, who will be presenting the topic on reef rescue initiatives given hurricanes or strandings or groundings. Okay, we will present now on screen. Very well. Thank you for the invitation extended to me in this such an interesting webinar. It's a very relevant topic to address. And first of all, I want to talk to you about threatened coral reefs and focus particularly in rescue initiatives that we can carry out when facing hurricanes and grounding. First of all, why are these ecosystems so important? They are the most biodiverse marine ecosystems that host a great variety of life and are built based on this biotic element of corals, and their skeletons through time form these enormous structures that build or are part of the reef, generating this habitat where many organisms can live. This is the house or the home for many organisms where they can live in perfect balance. These ecosystems are distributed globally in the tropical areas where there is warm waters and clear waters that are ideal for coral reefs to thrive. It's important to note that the reef systems are directly linked to all the coastal ecosystems, including seagrass, dunes, the beach, mangroves, forests, because there are many processes where they are interconnected through life cycles, geological processes, etc. So it's very important to conserve and protect this ecosystem throughout all our coasts. We also have to discuss environmental goods and services that we as human beings take from the environment. The main ones, the main goods or assets that we are benefited from. One of it is coastal protection. Wherever there is a coral reef formation, there is a barrier, protective barrier formed where there is a formation of calm and tranquility that it covers all the coastal area and wave intensity is diminished. That is what we call coastal protection, and which allows the development of touristic centers and urbanization around these attractive areas. So logically, this is where the most important touristic centers and urban centers are developed and where economic activities happen and are found near coral reefs. Another important aspect is that with the presence of this ecosystem, we see sand production due to the structure formation wear out that happens constantly, and that is where we find these white sand beaches that are so beautiful and that are associated with coral reef areas. Being such diverse ecosystems, we can also find here what are called fisheries with economic importance and carbon capture. Unfortunately, these ecosystems are highly threatened. First of all, many local scale threats or regional scale threats are related to anthropogenic action, which is contamination and groundings that are generated by ruptures to the reef and overuse of the area. We also have global threats related to climate change and an increase in the sea level, higher acidification, greater intensity and frequency in storms, and a rise in temperature. So related to these threats, we have been facing new threats nowadays, such as the tissue loss disease, SCTLD, which threatened many or infected many reef builders that are so important and have affected considerably most of the reef in the Caribbean. We have also faced with enormous bleaching events. Massive mortality has due to bleaching, and starting or highlighted even further in 2023, greater than what happened in years prior, and these are additional threats to our reefs. In this conversation, I want to focus in two of these threats that need to be targeted or addressed, and how we are acting with or institutions such as the Mexican Institute of Fisheries and Aquaculture, CONAMP, which focuses on many protected areas here in Quintana Roo, and response brigades. What I'm going to talk to you about here is framed around activities carried out with these institutions. Overall, what are some of the damages caused by these storms or these impacts. In the case of grounding, there is a fracture or a rupture in the calcarean matrix, and coral structures are fragmented, and ramified reefs or corals are the most susceptible ones. Massive, great-sized colonies, which are generally resilient during a hurricane event, are not so when there is grounding happening. They're highly affected, and many organisms as well, such as soft corals, are affected. There's an increase of sediment. The oil spills do happen, or fuel spills happen to vessels generally, and a lot of cleaning action needs to be taken. So what is the situation? We have a strategy that has been implemented since 2018, thanks to response brigades that have been fundamental and will be shared in more detail with during this presentation. I just want to focus more on this idea of how is a nautical accident addressed. Very generally, it's a series of actions of first finding out how did the impact begin? How did it happen? So through a series of actions, you can define what the trajectory was and be able to identify the particular areas where damage happened and be able to create maps. And an evaluation is conducted in a general or particular manner, but focused on expert reviews, expert technical reports that will allow for the proper information. And then we, as brigade members, have to focus on a remedial plan and be able to identify what particular issues need to be addressed and when. This is a remediation plan. Finally, I want to show you some images of ramified corals that are very large and need to be restored using these special bags. And if there are ruptures to the branches, they have to be recollected and have to be replanted in the reef with different procedures. Regarding fractured massive corals, there's a different procedure. This is a colony that was impacted by an engine of a vessel, and this skeleton vulnerable part needs to be sealed, and these fragments of the colony that are laying around have to be replaced in a series of steps that allow for a rebuilding of the colony to make it functional. This is another example of another colony that has been rebuilt piece by piece. We reconstructed this colony and later rehabilitate all the tissues of the colony and even support the replanting of nearby colonies, ramificated colonies. This is a colony that is a reproducing colony, and we are very proud of this intervention. We have some benefits of these interventions. Do we have some? Yes, we do. We have many. First of all, the coral cover is reduced. The loss of coverage is reduced. The permanence of reproductive corals is ongoing, and maintenance of the structural complexity, maintenance of marine biodiversity, and all this to preserve marine resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Claudia. For those of you who don't know, Claudia, she has spent dedicated over 30 years. She has dedicated over 30 years to the study of reef ecology, conducting research projects and innovation in coral production techniques and rehabilitation of coastal ecosystems. She is also, Dr. Claudia Padilla, is co-author of the Early Warning and Immediate Response Protocol to mitigate the impact of cyclones on coral reefs. So thank you so very much, Dr. Padilla. And if there are any questions, you can put them share them in the chat, and we will go ahead and answer the question at the end. We'll have a little bit of time at the end for your questions. Let's move on to the next panelist, Claudia Ruiz. She's the Reef Rescue Initiative Coordinator at Marfan, with more than 25 years of experience working in the conservation of marine and coastal resources, collaborating with prominent organizations such as the Nature Conservancy, World Wildlife Fund, and Nos Pesca, among others. And since 2017, she has coordinated the Reef Rescue Initiative and the Parametric Insurance Program for the Mar at Marfan, achieving important advances in the protection of the Mesoamerican reef. So now I turn it to you, Claudia. Thank you so much, Andre. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, well, thank you so much again, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. At this time, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Reef Rescue Initiative and what we do in terms of capacity building for post-storms. The Mesoamerica Reef is the longest reef in the Atlantic Ocean, very important in the world. More than 1,000 kilometers of coastline from the north of Quintana Roo in Mexico, crossing Belize, Guatemala, and through Honduras up to the Bay Islands. It's the Mar Polygon. Now, the Mar is an important space for biodiversity. It's a hotspot. And it's also a public good, providing very important environmental services like tourism, coastal protection, and fisheries. Now you can see here, according to a 2021 study by the BID, the Mar provides important coastline protection with over $438 million a year, protecting over 3 million inhabitants. All of us live within the Mar. The Mesoamerican Reef Fund, Mar Fund, has a Reef Rescue Initiative project. The main objective is to contribute to the recovery and resilience of the Mar and the environmental cultural services that the Mar provides. We achieve this objective through several strategies, including financial sustainability, which was creation of a mechanism to measure hurricanes. Another emergency mechanism, we have partnering with regions in the governments in the region, and we have measuring instruments, risk management instruments for ships that are stuck in the reef, post-storm problems, and we've supported many organizations and agencies in the region with capacity building, and we have a network of reef restoration capacity building there too, and we create post-storm capacity building as well. So in terms of the post-storm reef response, we're going to mention, as Claudia did before, the MAR faces a series of threats. One is hurricanes, climate change, and storms have multiplied. There are more and more intense and frequent storms, and although some are beneficial to the coastal systems because they regulate temperatures, hurricanes also can be the cause of damage and impact these. And so here you see some examples of some of the damage that hurricanes can cause in the coral reefs and the names of the different hurricanes. So that account through the reef rescue program and the capacity building strategy, we've trained post-storm response groups. That means, as you can see here, that it's a set of institutional arrangements, guidelines, staff, finance resources, and equipment to be able to respond immediately after the storm. That capacity for immediate post-storm response is very important. Those are institutional arrangements are extremely important because one agency cannot do it alone. There needs to be a protocol. It needs to be validated by all of the stakeholders involved in the resiliency and preservation of the MAR. So this structure and the way we've supported the creation of capacity building, we have taken it as through the early warning protocol in the sectors. Claudia Padilla is part of this, the authors group of this protocol. And the protocol tells us that says that the protocol is the instrument to guide actions before and after a hurricane. So we are helping to do outreach with this protocol. Then there's the whole issue of governance are different agencies that take action, and there's a coordinating committee to organize the way the different agencies will work together, a network of allies. Then we have the response brigades. These are snorkelers and divers who know how to go underwater, have the skills, and have special training to enter the sea at this special time, as Claudia mentioned in her presentation. And of course, it's important to have financing. MAR Fund, through the Reef Rescue Initiative, has created two mechanisms. One is a parametric insurance for post-hurricane in the reefs, and there's an emergency fund. There could be other financing as well with local in-kind contributions. MAR Fund supported the creation of 16 brigades to date. As of 2021, there are 16 brigades, 17 trainers have been prepared and certified, and there's a total of 168 brigadiers who've been trained in the 4 countries at these sites on the map. These sites are currently covered by the parametric insurance, but there's also an emergency fund, as I mentioned before, and if there's a hurricane elsewhere, you are in the right to apply for that fund and receive a response. So a lot of these capacity building agencies have been done with the TSC, and they've given us the know-how and they've helped capacity building. We've also worked with other partners like Fondo Acción, who've created also these response capacities in San Andres and Providencia. Pablo will tell you a little bit more about that. So I want to tell you that this program has a lot of benefits. It's replicable. The working program can be implemented elsewhere where there are reefs that require this kind of capacity. The protocol can also be replicated. And currently, we are updating the protocol with Dr. Padilla's help and DNSA so that it's updated to be able to do any kind of post-storm action to continue capacity building. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, Claudia. Great presentation. If there are any questions, you can share in the chat and we'll answer them in the end.
Okay, now we're going to listen to Pablo Davis Posada. He is the Climate Change Coordinator of Action Fund. He's a lawyer and master in environmental sciences with more than 12 years of experience in the formulation, coordination, and evaluation of climate projects at local, regional, and international level. He coordinates the design of parametric insurance for the reefs of the San Andres archipelago. And we give the floor now to Pablo Davis, who is going to share with us replicating and scaling post-storm response capabilities in the Colombian Caribbean. Thank you, Andre. Okay, good morning to everyone, and thank you for joining us and for Marvin for inviting me to this webinar. I am Pablo Davis. I coordinate the Fondo Acción, which is a private fund in Colombia, which has been conducting sustainable investment for 25 years in two areas of environment conservation and childhood protection. We have been also working for several years in the Colombian Caribbean, focusing in resilience and marine ecosystem strengthening and local communities. Here we are going to give a brief presentation on the capacity response and our context of how we are working. Some general context, the San Andres, Providencia, and Santa Catalina archipelago are a set of islands in the Caribbean, one of the largest reserve biospheres in the world, this sea flower reserve, which is of great importance in the Caribbean. It's a climate refuge and biodiversity, contributing significantly to local communities, livelihoods, and the area. The Santa Catalina and San Andres Providencia archipelagos are the largest, being 80% of the reefs of Colombia and part of the third largest barrier reef in the world. There are enormous benefits and ecosystemic benefits they're home to 59 species of reefs and over 600 species of fish, classified with a great coverage and fish abundance in the region and in the Caribbean. They provide ecosystemic services which are key in the archipelago, and they have reduced up to 90% of wave energy, of storms and hurricanes. There is a coastal protection program that is fundamental for the well-being of these ecosystems. Despite the beauty and the service they provide to these regions, they are one of the most vulnerable due to climate change. Our Department of San Andres and Providencia is one of the most vulnerable to impact and prone to storm and hurricane impacts. This has been shown in 2020, where Hurricane Iota affected or destroyed 98% of the infrastructure of the island directly, and more than 80% of reefs are affected in the archipelago. So this shows the frailty of the ecosystems. So in this context, since 2023, we've been working with Marfund and other strategic partners in a project to present a protection, innovative projects for protection and reef resilience. There is a parametric insurance that is being implemented to increase this capacity of resilience and be able to finance response, immediate response, and be able to support this. And this is all replicated by the Mesoamerican reef experience. And as Claudia mentioned, they are very important. And this is something highly innovative that has helped in protecting the marine systems. The parametric insurance is a financial instrument that is very reliable to cover associated costs regarding recovery of the reefs affected by hurricanes. The difference between these and traditional insurance is we know that when there is parameters that are established, there is that they're related to wind velocity, there are immediate and automatic measures taken to be able to respond to these local threats or issues. The design and operation of a parametric insurance requires several elements, of course. Response capacity with local brigaders in action, in rescue activities. There has to be a response protocol, a plan. There have to be a clear design of the structure of the insurance and a financial strategy. There has to be governance that has to be very clear and actors involved, stakeholders. So this is a new strategy for Colombia. So thanks to a key partner, which is Willis Towers Watson, they helped us design a parametric insurance for the archipelago based on a model of damage, based on reef vulnerabilities, to be able to identify the impact of hurricanes in these ecosystems and define a payout structure based on what needs to be the payout determined on the intensity and proximity of the event. And here are concentric circles that are related to the size of the hurricane. Here we can see the Iota hurricane, that if the parametric insurance would have been activated in that moment, it would have activated an 80% payment or value of the damage would have been covered with it, with this insurance. This it's important to rapid response is essential to be able to reduce negative impact to reefs and plan with time and make sure resources are in place. This is just a visualization of the process of payout of the insurance and how it's implemented for immediate response. Something that was very interesting for us was when Belize activated their insurance. Lisa hurricane hit the country, and 15 days later, they were supported by funds and brigades. And this is something that caught our attention, and it was very important for our country. The success of the model depends on many factors, but what we've seen is that the common denominator is empowerment and strengthening of local capacity and participation. We have worked hard in this regard. We have trained 36 brigade members in the islands of San Andres and Providencia. Mauricio will share more in detail what the training consists of, and they are trained in acting immediately, and there are 5 additional brigades that have been trained. 4 brigade instructors have been trained as well, and will actually be involved in a training in 15 days for training in the island. So we're ready. We're getting ready for any events. Many of these brigaders are local divers, fishers, local authorities, NGOs, community leaders, fire brigades, and all involved in action of sustainability. We have also strengthened a governance structure that is solid and feasible initiative. There's a response committee that's been developed with local authority, building in the progress that we have established in the island, with a protocol that clarifies what the step-by-step will be to activate the response. It's also to have a financing strategy, and we have resources that have been attained for the payment of the premium of the policy. There is also an insurance that we have the finance, we have the resources for the payment of the policy, and we'll make it happen. The impact is in this process has been evident thanks to training of brigades and the design of the plan. And we know this will increase rapid reconstruction and protection of the reefs, and there's enormous benefit to this process. This model is highly scalable and can be easily replicable in other regions of the Caribbean, and can be extended to other ecosystems, such as mangroves and protection of the coastal protection. Financially or economically, it's also going to protect and benefit all the tourism and fishery activity around the reef areas. Some lessons learned to finalize, I want to share that the most important one is partnership and community action and commitment. They are essential in integrating communities in throughout the whole process, in planning and execution and guaranteeing sustainability of the project, to empower these agents of change that need to face these climate challenges. Also, highlight that financing topic, this combination of innovative finance actions and climate action and climate community action are all very fundamental in the impact of the resilience of the reef. In our case, it's very interesting that it's the first time that an international cooperation program with another project that we carry out in another project has been able to provide their support in the payment of the insurance and involve other actors in private sector in the financing of this strategy. So basically, parametric insurance is an innovative and scalable initiative that is effective and can definitely help mitigate climate actions and climate change. I want to close with this phrase that local brigades are, as we saw in the video, part of the protection, and they are a channel to help sustain. And these tools, capacities and participation and finance governance can all be fundamental to face these challenges and build a more resilient future. Thank you very much, Pablo. Very interesting. If you have any questions, we are going to now pass to the next presenter.
Mauricio Valenzuela, the brigade instructor. He's an expert diver with 13 years experience in diving school in Guatemala. He has participated as an instructor in the training of response brigades in countries such as Guatemala, Honduras, Belize, Mexico, and Colombia. So I give the floor to Mauricio for his presentation. Very well. How is everybody? Hello, it's a pleasure and an honor to be with you. As the presentation, Andre's presentation told you, I've been a diving instructor for 13 years, another 7 years as a dive master, and many more years as a professional diver. And I am a tourist guide, karate teacher, and I have other skills. I'm paramedic and first aid instructor. What I wanted to tell you about today is building response capacity for reef post-storm reef response. So I'm going to try to ask you to please use a presentation mode. This is the picture in 2021 when I did my first instruction, and you can see a series of people here from different countries, from Guatemala, from Mexico, Honduras, Belize, not just forming a brigade, forming an actual brotherhood. And I'm going to share with you what it's like to be in the brigades. So first of all, you have a classification. It's a classification and selection of brigadists who are going to participate. And in this first part, before looking physically, we look at their resume. We look for the number of hours that they've spent diving, their experience, particularly divers. A diver in a brigade member selection. Brigade member selection is done through, well, it's a selection process based on experience. Our brigade members are local people with a lot, but just really a lot of experience. Maybe they don't have a diving license, but they have experience and they can go up to 40 meters underwater, just holding their breath. And we've learned so much from these people. Here you can see the pictures of the training with the theoretical and practical aspects. Here on the left, you see a picture in the pool. We're doing one of the tests. There's 6, 7 tests that we do in the pool or in open waters. And on the right, this is one of the rescue methods. And snorkelers have to know it, and the divers have to know how to do this as brigade members in order to be able to be selected. We are moving on to the next slide to see the theoretical framework. Now, the theoretical framework takes a whole day to cover the theory. It's a very heavy day. Talk about coral, the way it reproduces, different techniques to evaluate that they're going to do. Now, before receiving the course, we test people's level of knowledge, and as we present the different modules, the different PowerPoint presentations, there are evaluations. We cover coral reefs, damage classification, post-storm damages, primary response, which includes clearing garbage and debris, and the different fragments of coral. We should have more than 50% of alive in order to be able to return them and stabilize them. There are in unstable substrates, You have to know them to be able to identify them. And then finally, the final test. Really, the day is just a whole day we practice use of GPS to break the rhythm because it's a very heavy day. So next slide, please. Now, here we have the practical component. The first two pictures on the left show us on land giving instructions. The first on the upper left is how to use the bags, the balloons, to raise materials. We show them different types of knots to tie. And on the right, we have somebody in the middle. You see a middle top, somebody using a drill. And then a person is fixing using belts or rope. And then in the middle, you see the raising bag and the raising balloon. And then finally, you see we're using the pneumatic drill, hydro-pneumatic drill. Next picture. So we're going to talk about water skills. The first day is theory, theoretical framework. There's a selection of brigade members. And the next day, or we can do practical exercises also on the first day, doing part of the first day in the water and part of the first day in the water. And here you can see the people in the training. Now, water skills are different requirements, including experience in the water, licenses, how much experience they have diving. And then we classify damage. We look at how to classify post-storm damage. Completely practice. We gave a little briefing and we go out on the boat and then we deliver and have an inventory of the kit that every brigade receives and how to maintain it, how to take care of it. And we make them aware that it is a donation and that it is important to preserve it as long as possible so that they take care of these assets. Part on the land after being in the water, we go back to the land and they learn to use cement to fix and making the knots, tying knots, and we make an inventory at the end of day one. On day two, the land practice becomes then practice in water. And again, there's the fixing, how to use cement to fix, and then the knots to tie the raising balloons and the inventory of their asset. And then day three on land, they learn to use the drill, learn to use the camera to then go into the water and do to set the coral fragments, and there you go. That's 3 days of practice on land and water and 1 day for the theoretical framework. And the 5th day is the final evaluation. This is a theoretical and practical evaluation. We go into the water. There's a brief exam, and there's a surprise for them there. There's a kit box, and they have to adapt to the surprise that they didn't expect. So that simulates the conditions of being in an emergency. And basically, this is what I was going to share with you. That has been my presentation. And I wanted to share the different brigades. So if you could share the previous picture, there we have the Tela Group, Guatemala Brigade, Roatan, Belize, Puerto Morelos. The pictures in Puerto Morelos and San Andres in Providencia de Puerto Morelos was a TOT, a training of trainers. We trained trainers. This was the first one in Puerto Morelos, Mexico last year. And there I had the opportunity to not only be an instructor, I was also the director of the Mesoamerica reef system, and I'm one of the 4 directors in the area. And final picture, we're together in brotherhood. Let's look at the last picture. Claudia Ruiz has already shared this picture. This is a replica of the picture on the left, and we took it again in Belize. So there are 2 brigades in Belize from last year. Thank you so very much for your attention in this presentation. And I'm here for you for whatever you need. So have a great day. Thank you so much, Mauricio. Thank you for sharing. That was very good. And we are ready for the next person.
Okay, our next panelist is Dr. Maria del Carmen Garcia Rivas. She's a director of the Puerto Morelos Reef National Park of the National Commission of Natural Protected Areas. She has 25 years of experience in the management of protected natural areas, including her current role as director of the Puerto Morelos Reef National Park. She is also the winner of the IUCN Kenton Miller Award in 2023 for her innovation in the management of marine protected areas, focusing on coastal restoration and response to impacts such as groundings and hurricanes. So now I give the floor to Dr. Maria del Carmen, who will present on the topic of community participation in post-storm response efforts for reef rescue. Thank you. I'm so happy to be here with you in this webinar. And my predecessors have spoken about everything related to these actions that we need. I'm just going to share with you a story of success that we've had here in Puerto Morelos. Puerto Morelos is the northern area of the state of Quintana Roo, Mexico. We have a high number of visitors in the area of Cancun, Playa del Carmen, and Tulum. There are over 2 million visitors every year. And here we have in Puerto Morelos, a national park that has been decreed 27 years ago, which is a patch of most important elk horn patches of the Mesoamerican reef. It's a high responsibility to protect it. The local inhabitants, around 28 years ago, in next Sunday, we will be celebrating 27 years of the park, and they realized how the high value that the park or the reef represents. And the local populators, fishermen, and service providers that are Mayan origin know this. They would even take advantage of the palo de tinte tree, which is from the forest, and they know that they have to protect it. So this park is very sensitive and of high participation, of community participation in brigades. If people are not aware and empowered, they know they have to do so. This process began in 2018 with a Nature Conservancy training. We had the parametric insurance in place, and in Mexico, we performed some actions with park rangers in providing services and empirically carrying out some efforts. Then we formalized our protocol and trained our first group of people in Puerto Morelos. And it's a very easy effort to conduct because the reach to reef is less than a kilometer extension. So it's not a remote area. Later on, after the training there was a vessel that conducted sargassum collection and unfortunately damaged with an anchor some of the reef. and some of our brigade members that are part of the post-storm began work. And later on, we began training. And in 2020, we had a lot of work to do. As we say in Mexico, we had a lot of chamba. And this began be attending damage of two hurricanes, two storms, and making stabilizing many fragments and colonies and these ramified Acropora palmata species in Limon, and a lot of the efforts were done throughout 20 kilometers. It was very successful. We also had training in this year, but in 2020, there was a grounding of a large tree trunk that, and there were secondary actions that were conducted in nurseries with our colleague Claudia Padilla of Inapesca and other colleagues, and we began to perform restoration efforts and other training to brigades. In 2023, we had the largest bleaching event in high mortality occurred, unfortunately. And what we as reef guardians conducted was identification of living corals that remained in the area. That was a priority action, and all the post-storm damage was addressed. In 2024, last year, we also worked very hard because we were hit by two hurricanes again and several storms. Our coordinator, Celia Romero, helped us with this presentation where we can see the process of beginning with evaluation and practice of expert brigade members of over 5 years of experience and new ones also that are joining in. We included over 1,000 fragments in Limones and in Jardines, also labeling intervened colonies and be able to monitor the process better. This has been part of the history of work, and also there have been actions that have been carried out within storms and storms. We saw that there was a grounding. Although the vessel was removed, we did rescue in the initiative. What are the elements of success in the area, and why does the community respond and support with as brigade members and giving support? And because they are people that are part of that live in their life around the ocean, and they are related to it, and they're in love with it, and they know there are many aspects that are related and have to be taken care of. There is a strong relationship. We have to strengthen and take care of it and identify any weaknesses. There's overall organization and leadership training constantly ongoing. Everybody is doing the best they can and be able to learn all the skills to become guardians and learn to train and to become brigade members. There's a very clear structure developed so everybody can have an opportunity to participate in as coordinators and leaders in different levels. Everybody plays a role, even the one person that takes the food, and everybody participates in very different manners. Our mission is to be an interdisciplinary group with high identity and pride. We wear a shirt and a uniform with our logo. It helps us identify ourselves and gives us empowerment. We are the first responders. When an emergency happens, We work as a team with a system of leaders with shared functions and roles, shared results, clear and strict safety rules to handle situations and contingencies. There's ongoing training. You need an important physical condition for this type of work and to be able to work in the water. Clear, assertive communication is also essential. Be able to have clear communication channels and are all part of the harmony of these brigade members. This community participation, as I mentioned, has its origin in the community itself, and everybody is involved. There's constant support. We have to listen to everyone, their complaints, and any damages to the reef. That's why we also need materials and equipment, and that requires funds and or financing, which is enormous with the support of MARFund and the emergency funds as well. This is all part of the efforts that we have carried out thanks to MARFund in this last year, 2024. There is also simulated action plans that are done outside of the water as well as inside. There also is feedback given, what went well, what went wrong, how to strengthen it. We are very open in and have we make sure that everybody receives feedback well, and that we know that we're human beings and that we make mistakes, but they're always important to learn to be better in our interventions. On the other hand, the strategic alliances, for the marine environment, gives us the opportunity to work in front line with vessels and the municipalities, guardians, artists, painters also are involved. Artists are involved, so to help raise awareness, so that visitors get to know about our efforts and the help that needs to be given to the reefs. We also have clear legal structures in place for the park. We have a management program and for restoration. In this decade, there's a clear recognition of the resilience and restoration is so important for these legal frameworks. Corresponding permits are in place and make things as professional as possible. We also need to highlight the community's efforts. We are also very pleased to be recognized in the media and in the New York Times, for example, and other articles are published. And this lifts our spirit to see how we are being recognized. This is a success story that is thanks to the efforts of every individual. Everyone has a clear reason of why we're rescuing the reef, protecting the reef, why we want it to be better, and everyone participates with this clarity and purpose. So I thank you for your time, and any questions in the end will be addressed. Thank you, Doctor, and all the panelists for your presentations.
Okay. We have 15 minutes for questions. If anyone has a question or comment, share it in the chat and we'll read it there. And we'll transmit them to the right panelists to answer your questions. I'll begin. There's a question here that says, what is the blue paste that is that is put on the coral? What is the blue paste that is used to fix coral fragments? And there's a comment. What material do you use to fix the coral fragments? And have you experimented with different materials to get the best results? And what have been the best results? What's the best material according to your experience? I think this is a question for Dr. Padilla. So we give the floor to Dr. Padilla. Yes, Andre, thank you very much. And for most interventions, we use a cement mix. The paste is very big. You can't do very fine work. So when you are working with big fragments, like there's a big hole in the colony, then you can first use cement, which is easy to make, it's cheap, and that something you can handle more or less. When there's a larger surface, to build a massive colony in a very initial first intervention, when you're start with the largest fragments, but then when you have the smaller pieces, then cement isn't useful anymore. So we have epoxy plasticine, and it's got two components. When you mix it, then you can use it underwater and you can do very fine work to generate a little bit more detail and have a secondary intervention, which is what we call secondary intervention so that the coral is reconstructed more fully. The truth is that in our experience, we've had very good results. We as biologists know the importance of a coral of this size. This is coral which will live 40, 50 years or more. And these are important elements in the ecosystem because they reproduce. So it's worthwhile to take your time and reconstruct them as best as possible, because after some time you can't even see where you glued fragments. The coral itself fuses, and that's what you try to do when you put the pieces back together. The coral is then grows over and you can't see the fissures anymore. It's very exciting. We feel very proud to go back to the colonies and to see that they are still there and they resist other storms, other hurricanes. And so I think that it is a very important work that generates a direct positive impact. Thank you so much for your response. Dr. Padilla. We're going on to the next question now. And let's see here. It says, what is used to seal damaged coral? Okay, I think I didn't. Someone else asks here, how do you apply for the parametric insurance? And this question, I think, is for Claudia Ruiz. Thank you, Andre. Yes, we can go into detail, but we don't have very much time right now. As Pablo mentioned, it's a financial mechanism, and it's based on a predefined parameter, which is the speed of wind when the hurricane hits land. So it covers the risk of hurricane, in this case, risk of hurricane. And MAR Fund, it's a regional insurance covering 11 sites. Every year, we update the coverage, we update the models, add sites. Since 2021, we've added new sites. I want to propose, and on the chat, I shared a link with a summary with all of the frequent questions, what the insurance is, What is it for? What it covers? What are the sites that it covers? What's the model it uses? What's the payment structure? Who intervenes? Who do we coordinate with? This document will help you so much. All your questions are there and they're answered, especially because these are frequent questions. So I invite you to read the document. I shared it in the chat. I can share it again. And if you have additional questions, you can write to me by email and we can look at that then. Does that help? Does that help you does that help the person who asked the question? Because really, it's a lot of information, a lot of detailed information to answer your question. What does everybody think? Let me know if the document and the link helps. Thank you, Claudia, for your answer. Next question. Someone here asks, what is the company that has the parametric insurance in Colombia? I think you already answered, but Pablo, if you can answer. Excuse me. Yes, thank you for the question. And as I answered in the chat, and as I said in my presentation, this is a very important issue. The design of the insurance, the modeling, all very important. And when we get the resources and who takes that insurance policy, so we capitalize on the lessons learned and we manage the resources in the insurance. Right now, there isn't yet an insurance company. Willis Towers Watson is in charge. That's the partner that designed the modeling for the parametric insurance for the archipelago in Colombia. The idea is that the insurance be in place before the coming hurricane season, the third semester, this third quarter this this year. So that's we're approaching the market and we're looking at bids. And so we've formalized and named Willis Towers Watson to be in charge of placing the insurance, be in charge of the insurance in Colombia. And so that's what we can tell you as far as answering your question at this moment. Can you hear us, Andre? Yeah. Oh, sorry. I didn't realize I was muted. Thank you for your answer, Pablo. Let's go to the next question. And I see people asking whether there is going to be a recording. To see this webinar again, you can visit our web page. It'll be on our Facebook page in the videos. The recording will be on our website soon. And there are other materials there that were shared in this webinar, and you'll be able to download them there. So yes, the recording will be available. And again, in the chat, they shared a survey. So we invite you to, we ask everyone to please fill out the survey to get your feedback. There seem to be more questions. Baruch is asking if there have been dates scheduled for Mexico trainings. And the answer is that all of this is still in discussion. There are no dates yet. We're still planning all of that. Well, those are all the questions I see.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today in this webinar.